Hey everybody, David here, and welcome to the ASOG podcast. In this episode, we speak with Kylan Moore, the owner and operator of Lonnie's Tire in Independence, Missouri. Kylan shares his story of recovering from addiction, and we discuss whether or not to hire someone that's recovering themselves. But before we get started, please take a moment to hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you like our content, consider subscribing to the channel. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're set to automatically download the latest episode so you never miss an upload. And now, here we go.
I get this text message. Hey, Roman's setting up a second profile so he can keep his politics and professional lives apart, or is he being hacked? I said, it's a second profile. You hit the nail on the head.
No, that was very specific. Who said that one?
Hang on. He says, all kidding aside, good move. His stuff was getting intense enough that I thought it would turn people off from his professional stuff. I was meaning to talk to you about it because I was getting scared it would begin to reflect poorly on you by association.
Oh, no! You gotta reveal. Who is it? Come on.
I'm not revealing that. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Screenshots or it didn't happen.
Oh,
I bet it was Justin.
No, it was not.
It wasn't?
No. Let's see here.
I'm gonna be surprised.
Jom Toad. I've changed your name. It's Jom Toad on my phone now.
John Toad.
Jom Toad.
Is there any meaning behind that, or was that just a jumble of letters there?
No, it's he thinks he is a political activist.
Yes, he does.
No,
it's pretty bad.
It really is. It's awful.
And that's fine.
Yeah. As long as
you're talking about my name, Tom Joad's
it's from a song and a book.
No. He's a character from a book called The Grapes of Wrath, written by John Steinbeck. And the character starts off very with a very certain attitude. He's like, screw people, and he doesn't see the plight of, even though he's in a very tough situation. He's poor.
Would you click record?
Poor,
this is like fucking epic gold.
Yes, it is.
What?
It's recording.
No, so he's. I'm always recording, bro.
Sweet.
I edit all of it out, so don't worry. But he starts off a certain way in the book, but he starts to see as him and his family have to move out west, and as he starts to move out west, and he gets to the new location, and they're struggling to find work, and they have to work on this farm, and he starts to see the oppression of the everyday man, and it changes him. And it changes him to the point that he's like, I cannot sit back and see this and not say anything any longer. And towards the end of the book, a friend of his dies, and the friend of his is sort of the conscience. And you see the similarities here, Lucas. The conscience, the guy who's trying to keep him grounded, and he's like, dude, you're going off in left field here. You have to understand. And he's trying to give the guy perspective. He ends up dying in the book. He ends up getting killed. And towards the end of the book, his mom's like, hey, I'm afraid that you're going to end up dying. And he tells his mom, he tells, hey, and every time you see a cop beating a guy, every single time you see the haves oppressing the have-nots, and he goes, I'll be there. My legacy is going to carry on because this is bigger than me. It's important that I step up and do this. And he goes off, and he does become a political activist towards the end of the book. But
and wasn't there a song about it after the fact?
Yeah, there's a bunch of songs out there.
Very cool.
There's a bunch of but it's a but like the first time I heard the character was the Rage Against the Machine song. But Rage Against the Machine, it's kind of funny. The Facebook's been showing me a whole bunch of their videos, like their old videos, and they're avowed communists. They're not even socialists. They're hardcore communists. They think communism is a good thing. But the message behind a lot of their songs is very populist in nature, and it's very much it's almost Trump-esque. in what he was trying to do in coming in and stepping into politics, a non-career politician. He's like, I'm going to return the power back to the people. That's the point. That's why I'm here. Completely destroy the establishment. And a lot of their songs are anti-establishment, not necessarily pro-communist, but them personally, they're pro-communist. But their songs don't come off that way. So I don't find them abhorrent per se.
Well,
when they're singing their songs and stuff like that, it's a very anti-establishment type of music, which I appreciate.
you know, I've been talking a lot to Sid about this lately, and you know, Sid has very, very strong political beliefs to the point that he just can't, like, he can't shut his mouth about it, right? He absolutely has to say something, and I think at some point or another, I think it's honorable that somebody feels it's so important that they need to speak out and try and prevent this unjust that they see in the world or try and change things. I get that. I think that's honorable. But I also think that in many ways that there's, you know, we've talked a lot about the circle of control. Like, the circle of control is really important for me, because I need the things in my life that I can control. Right. And you ask me all the time, like, man, why are you trying to do all of these different things? Well, it's because the things I'm doing are within my circle of control. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sure.
Like, the things I'm taking care of, the things I'm working on are all things that I can control. And if I get outside of that, I feel super uncomfortable, because I'm over here focusing on things that I want to make happen, and it just doesn't happen. I'm the person who, like, if I'm going to fix a car, I want to go out and see the car fixed, right? I want to drive it and know what I've done has accomplished something. I'm not somebody who can accept that my efforts were minimally successful. Does that make sense? So, like, for me, like, we're down here working on the shop, and I like to go down there and see, man, we've been successful today. We've got things done. I'll get really bummed out if we've not been, you know, productive. And just like with the numbers with the shop, David, you're always saying, like, well, man, that's crazy. Why are you trying to push for numbers like that? That's where I feel in my heart my success comes from. It's not necessarily the number we're hitting, it's the goal. It's the accomplishment. It's getting something done. Does that make sense? And I just feel like so many times you see these political activists, it's very difficult to get it done. It's very difficult to accomplish it. Does that make sense?
Oh, I understand entirely. I get where you're coming from, but I think the difference though between you and I is that, for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be tangible. So somebody throws an idea out there, okay, and then that's what Facebook ends up being, is a whole bunch of people talking, and they're just throwing ideas out there. We'll get into some of your posts here in a second, Kylan, but into the mic, dear, into the mic.
Sorry.
So we'll people throw ideas out there. The ideas are garbage, or they've been debunked, or they're just flat out wrong, or they're interesting and they need to be sort of fleshed out, or whatever. I think in the engaging in the discussion is fruitful for a couple of reasons. One, you never know if it's you putting the idea out there. You never know whose mind you're going to change. Okay, and you've seen this in ASOG. How many people, just from the discussion of how to handle this customer, how to handle pricing, how to handle whatever, have been able to learn and improve their businesses and their lives just from reading through the discussion? So that, and what have you really done other than just thrown an idea out there? But it had tangible results. You may not even understand, you know, the impact you've had in some of your posts, Lucas. You'll never know.
Right.
But that's how powerful throwing the idea out there is that it can, in perpetuity, for forever. It's out there. It's in the it's out there for anybody to see and read and to then learn and grow from. So just putting it out there, I think, is important.
Yeah.
And then for me in particular, I almost seek out the rebuttal to my take, to my argument. I want to see somebody take my idea on. I want to hear the other side, because in doing that, I can formulate a better idea. I can find the kinks in the armor and develop a stronger armor. Or I need to completely scrap it and start over. But I need to know. And that's where like everybody gets upset or like, oh, you're just in an echo chamber and things like that. Look, I've been kicked out of left-wing groups. I've been kicked out of right-wing groups. Okay. I just got kicked out of one yesterday. I got pissed off because and why did I get kicked out of the right-wing group? Because these people were in an echo chamber. And it's like, dude, if you're not even self-aware enough to see that what you're saying is wrong and has been debunked. Like, I get it. The other side is, you think it is entirely wrong, and they might be. It's whatever, right? But at least listen to what they're saying, because in listening, you're going to realize that some of what you're saying is dead wrong too. Find the middle ground. It's not even the compromise. I'm not saying the compromise. That's not at all what I'm saying. People think it's like, oh, they're happy medium. It's not that. Find the best argument possible. And it might be a little bit of the left. It might be a little bit of the right.
I think listen, here's the thing though, is that there is a difference in doing that and sharing your thoughts and sharing your beliefs and being open to dialogue and moving back and forth and becoming so passionate it affects your life. Right. And I'm not saying passion is a bad thing, but I think you can get so passionate about something, you can get so fired up and so committed that it's easy to overlook that thing that you were once willing to hear someone else's perspective, that situation that you were willing to voice your opinion, and then you wanted to hear back and get feedback and adjust and change your belief system and try and improve things for everybody. It's so easy to follow a path where you become so committed to it that you lose sight of the forest for the trees. Right? You become so ingrained in it. You become aggressive about it. You become super, super, super just, I don't know, inflamed by anything that's different than what you think it should be. Does that make sense? Like, I've seen a lot of people get that way, and it starts just like you're talking.
But here, I don't think it starts that way. That's the problem, is in refusing to hear the other side, that's how you end up getting. And that's the problem, and that's why I got kicked out of the right wing group, is because they didn't want to hear the other side, and it's the same reason why I got kicked out of the left wing groups. They don't want to hear the other side, and somebody who can make a coherent argument. I'll give you an example. And maybe somebody thought I was trolling or whatever. Jay Ha, he puts a very nice post out there about how he's been able to come into this country and overcome all these adversities and be able to do really well for himself and well for his family. And it was because he was willing to put his head down and do the work.
Yeah.
And that is unbelievably commendable.
Absolutely.
And that is the American story. But
here we go.
Well, there's an alternative narrative, and the alternative narrative overlooks the fact that he's been able to succeed as an immigrant and do really well for himself and his family, essentially living the quote unquote American dream. They see it completely differently, and the only reason why I put out the alternative narrative, I don't believe it. I believe very much in what he said. I think that ultimately is a meritocracy. I'm going to edit all that out, me stumbling over that word. Meritocracy is very much a meritocracy, and it's what America was built on, right? Anybody from anywhere can come into this country, and if you put the work in and you have a better idea than everybody else, you should be able to succeed.
Yes.
And do well for yourself and your family. Okay, and so everybody that believes it not just because they believe that to be true or have been able to see it themselves, because a lot of the people that were agreeing with his post are native born white folk that live in the flyover country. That's who's like saying, yeah, right on. They are agreeing with it because it's a rejection of the other side without ever listening to what the other side is saying. Does that make sense?
What's the other side saying?
The other side says that there are systems in place that are inherently racist and push down and prevent people of color from succeeding. And they're built into the systems themselves, insofar as that even if they were to try, now these specifically even more so are for native born people of color or just people of color in general, but insofar as that even if they were to try, they will not be able to succeed. And then they're able to produce all these statistics that say, look at the giant disparity between those that are succeeding and those that are not. Disproportionately Black, disproportionately Hispanic. And so they're trying to find a reason for that. And in their reasoning behind it ends up being very Marxist in nature. But I think it's important to at least entertain the idea. Now, again, I don't agree with it, because it almost removes agency from the individual. It's like, well, there are examples of people overcoming, but it almost becomes a mindset. Like, if you think you're going to fail, yes, you're always going to fail. If you think you're being discriminated against, you'll always be discriminated against.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for the people that were agreeing with this post to just see the other side. Let's talk about what they're saying. Are they right? Have you even considered it? And most of the time they don't. They don't consider the idea, and they won't even listen to it. They won't even entertain it. They won't even pick the holes in it and figure out where's the flaw in the argument. And that's where you end up with somebody unwilling to listen. And that's where they get so charged up. They get in their bubble and they're like, don't pop my bubble. And they get very upset. And if you challenge their bubble, if you challenge them on what they believe, it becomes a personal attack. You are questioning their very being. And that's why they get angry and violent. And you're questioning their very being, because they can't necessarily separate themselves from the ideas. And they have no rebuttal because they haven't considered the other side. They haven't fleshed out their ideas. And so now you're just attacking them personally. And that's where it gets dangerous. But just from having the discussion in a civilized manner, I think is paramount. That's how you break out of that bubble. Have you considered this other idea? Now, I may not always do it in the
nicest way.
See, look,
no, I do it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It does maybe come off sarcastic, and I'm not.
It's not even that it comes off sarcastic. It's that you're so smart you don't even realize that you're. Never mind. I'm not going to say what I was going to say. There's a Cat
go ahead,
Williams.
Lucas.
No, I can't say that. There's a Cat Williams skit about
dumb smart people.
Yes.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know it. Yeah,
you knew it. So, I mean, look, my dad is probably one of the smartest, most emotionally intelligent individual you'll ever meet in your entire life, right? And I never appreciated that the way it should have been appreciated. And luckily he's still here, and I've had the opportunity to appreciate it more. And I've much of who I am is who my dad is. But I never realized how many people looked up to him and how many people recognized his intelligence and his willingness to care for other people, his willingness to overlook everything they had ever done wrong without consequence. And so a little story about my dad, for years, my dad always told me, and all of our parents told us, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place, and there is a time and a place for everything. And knowing when to say something and knowing when not to say something is extremely important.
David.
Yeah. And so, my dad always would tell me, he said, son, when you stop trying to live other people's lives for them, you'll go on with living your own. And I never understood what he meant by that. And it was that I was trying to interject myself into the beliefs and the thought processes of others, hoping that they were going to see things the way I wanted them to see things. And that wasn't realistic. So interestingly enough, and I went through some wild times, and anybody that knows me knows that. I'm not afraid to say it. But my dad loved me unconditionally, right? And my mom did too. And I would get so frustrated when I came out of those rough times because my dad would bend over backwards to help people no matter what. Right. And there was this one particular guy, he was a painter, and he had written my dad probably 100 bad checks, right? $1,000 here, $1,000 there. He'd borrow a ladder. He'd do this. He'd do that. Guy was a heroin addict, and he would get in here and he would stay in one of our rental cabins. We'd have to go literally physically remove him from the cabin. And then a few weeks later, he was back up there borrowing money from dad. And dude, I would get so mad. I would get so frustrated. Like, what are you doing, Dad? You're not helping this guy. You're not enabling. You're enabling him. You're giving him a pathway. And my dad just kept helping him. And today the realization hit me. One of the guys who works for us, he said, if your dad hadn't done what he did, I'd be dead. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I was struggling with 3 different types of addiction at one point. And he said, if it hadn't been for him willing to accept me as I was, not trying to change me, not trying to make me something different, not trying to convince me to be something different, accepted me just like I was. And that wasn't something I had even gotten from my own family. I would have never done things differently. I would have never seen the light. I would have never changed the way I live my life. And so while I think it's important for people to hear the other side of the story, I also think it's important, and maybe there's people for each role, but I also think it's extremely important for somebody to just love them, right? Somebody just to care and say, man, you know what? It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if I'm right or you're right or I'm right and you're wrong. It doesn't matter. It's okay. I can love you just the way you are. I can accept you just the way you are. We don't have to agree for me to love you as a human being, for me to want what's best for you no matter what.
That's how you treat people, though.
That's how,
like I'm never going to treat somebody poorly because they don't believe what I believe politically. I think that's wrong.
You say that, but you get so emotionally wound up.
No.
yes, you do.
Yeah, you really do.
Absolutely not. I may get animated.
Listen.
Like my wife says it all the time. Like, why are you screaming? And it's like, I'm not screaming. I'm just excited.
I'm just talking very loud.
It's not that I'm. I never get overly emotional. I mean, I may act it out because it's almost if you get animated and you get loud, it's almost like hyperbolic to the argument. Like it enhances the argument. But I'll give you a perfect example. Is today we get a Volkswagen CC comes in, and we're changing out the turbo. The dealership sent us the wrong turbo, and it's missing a oxygen sensor bung. And we took the catalytic converter off, and it was completely clogged. This thing's been burning oil, but it's been burning oil for a minute. This thing's completely clogged. This guy has been pressing us for how long is he going to have? How long are you going to have the car? How long are you going to have the car?
Sounds familiar.
Like pressing. I mean, no, like obnoxiously. Like this thing is getting out of hand. How often he's having to call, and it's like every 5 minutes we're having to explain to him, dude, we got to wait for the parts. It's going to take time to do this repair. It's a very intense repair. This, that, and the other. And you're trying to reason with him, but he just didn't understand. And then we ran into this. So we call the dealer. They knew they screwed up. They understood what they did wrong. And so they go, the reason why they sold us the one they sold us, in my mind, I think, because of what ended up happening afterwards, is because that's the one that was available. And the correct one is on national back order. And they have a few kind of scattered all over the country, but they couldn't get their hands on it very quickly and easily. And so when we called him and said, this thing's wrong, he's like, crap. And you could hear him in the background kind of scrambling and talking, well, I sold him the wrong one. I don't know what we're going to do. I can't find this other one. and meanwhile, we don't know what we're going to tell the customer. He comes back and he tells us that, hey, I'm going to be able to put a request into Volkswagen. They're going to end up buying it from one of the dealerships, and then they'll ship to us, and then we'll sell it to you. I said, okay, that's fine, whatever. And so I tell Juan to call the customer, and I said, put your dad voice on, because this guy is going to get upset. He's going to want to talk over you and sort of control the conversation. You have to control the conversation. You got to put your dad voice on. And he's like, okay. He didn't. And he got completely shellacked. I'm listening to the phone call, and he got shellacked. The guy was just all over him, and accusatory in his tone, and didn't believe what he was telling him. Everything what Juan said was true to the letter, to the T, exactly how it happened. And this guy just wasn't having any of it. He got so upset that about 20 minutes later, he walked in the shop. And he's like, you need to explain this to me. And I was here for that. And Juan started to explain to him. He was a little bit more assertive in his voice. But I knew this guy was starting to get upset again, and I jumped in. And my assertiveness, my animation, and the tone in my voice, and just the way I was saying, I didn't say anything different than what Juan said. But because I was able to explain to him in a certain way, fashion, tone, he was able to understand, and he left here perfectly happy. Even though we have no idea when this car is going to be done, because I have no idea when this part's going to be here. He left happy.
That's what matters.
Yeah. But my point is, it's not about even getting emotional. It's about being as convincing as possible. And if you believe in your idea, if you believe in what you're saying is true, importantly true, because if it's not true, if it's not objective truth, then why get upset over it? Like, I there's no reason to argue whether, Fruit Loops is better than Frosted Flakes. Like, it doesn't matter. That's preference. But when you're talking about ultimate truths, things that matter, it's important to convince the other person because you care. And that's where you it's not like I get emotional or I get upset. It's not. It doesn't, I'm going to do my best to convince you of what I'm telling you, because I believe what I'm telling you is absolute truth. And me in particular, have examined my ideas to the nth degree as far as I can take them. And nobody has been able to debunk it, because I've changed what I've believed enough that I think I'm grounded firmly beyond any doubt that I could possibly have. And now I have to convince you of it because of what I believe to be ultimate truth. I need to convince you of it because it matters. It's the only thing that matters in life. And it's not just accepting you at where you are. It's not, and I will always treat you as nice as possible, but I still need to convince you of what you're doing is wrong or what you believe is wrong, because it matters. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think, what is it Andy Andrews says at the end of the 7 decisions that you hate so much? That everything you do matters, and it matters to all of us.
That's such a bland platitude. I hate Andy Andrews.
Well, my point though is that what percentage of what is it that they say? What percentage of perception is reality, or what percentage of reality is now perception? And because you say that, right? Because you believe that so heavily, especially, and we deal with this in the shop all the time, especially when it's something on the internet where we're just seeing text. You can't really tell. You can't really understand, well, how does David really feel about that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because think about the number of text messages you've got that you're like, man, they are super pissed off at me. And now you call the client back and you're like, hey.
They're super cool, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering about this. I was prepped for my butt chewing.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to understand that going in. You have to realize that, hey, this is still just text.
You don't convey that. You don't convey that well on Facebook.
That I'm not being serious?
No, not at all. And most people, listen, you're so smart that And I revert back to the Cat Williams comments again.
Yes.
You're so smart that most people can't pick up that you're smart. They just think you're, well, anyway.
An ass. I
Or
get it.
trolling.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Kylan.
Yes. I'm pretty bad about that.
So I sometimes hang out with Kylan's brother. And Kylan's brother is
I
hold on. I
Okay,
gotta Kylan's brother is pretty reserved, at least on the internet. You don't see him just blasting things out and putting up political posts and just things like that. Right?
He stays out of it.
He stays out of it. He's super nice guy, super smart, cracks lots of jokes. Everybody likes him. He does not like anything that Kylan puts up on the internet.
Oh, it's
Kylan. Kylan is a troll at a master level. Okay, you think I'm trolling? Kylan does it on to the nth degree.
It's
far
bad
better. What's that?
It's bad sometimes, and I have to catch myself, man. And what was it, Lucas? We're being political on the internet and then having your business right there is that's such a fine line, man. And
it is.
Okay, but I'm just telling you right now, Lucas, I'll screenshot some of his stuff. I'm just telling you right now.
It's bad.
The line that you think you draw, the line you think that I draw, which is much further than what you'll draw, drive about 10,000 miles and you'll hit Kylan's line, okay?
It's bad, Lucas. It's bad.
But I think, I think you in particular, Kylan, are in an interesting position because of the shop that you have.
Yeah,
is so it's I don't know, I envy you. I do, because so much of what I do it's based on relationships. And so for somebody to want to drop $5,000 and the ticket for this poor guy with a CC just went to $6,000. So at $6,000, the guy's got to have a really trusting relationship, and he's got to know this is going to work out. And and there has to be so much back and forth and stuff like that. Like if the guy is left wing and I start waving Trump 2024 flags in front of that sours the relationship immediately. Or the other way around. If the guy's a hardcore Trumpist and I'm like, Uncle Joe's doing a great job, he's going to get upset. And so you can't put any of that stuff out there. But you, Lucas, I'm telling you, not only does he put right within the troll post, and he'll just crack jokes about people and their economic choices.
Yes,
you can just kind of go off and think about what that would look like. But within those posts, people will start to comment, and you'll start selling tires within the comment section. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could say completely foul but hilarious things and then sell automotive repair within the comment section.
Look, that's a really interesting point, because there's a gentleman who owns I don't know if you'd call it military surplus, but he makes belts and things like that, like duty belts and gun belts, stuff like that. And I found it really interesting. It was almost kind of like a case study for me to follow him on Facebook, because I began to watch it. And the same thing with my buddy Garrett Shields, who owns Pure Diesel Power. These guys will aggressively troll negative commenters about their business. They will share political commentary. They will say things that there's no way in hell you'd get me to say something like that on a public platform, right? Yeah. No way. And I always wondered, what happens? Is this going to cause the cancel culture or whatever it is,
the backlash,
to come and take them out? And the support that they got from people who agreed with them far outweighed what anybody could do negatively to them. And Garrett in particular, it's really interesting because Garrett and I have been friends or known each other for a really long time. I started the shop and he was doing the diesel wholesale parts thing probably about the same time I started the shop. He's been extraordinarily successful. I mean, like, words can't explain how successful Garrett's been. And what's interesting about it is that Garrett will take bad reviews or post where someone sent them a message and said something negative. Hey, you really shouldn't be charging me that. Are you going to give me a free t-shirt and knock $100 off or something? Just ridiculous comments that people would ask about a part. He would post it with their full name and everything and just like slam it up on Facebook and like, here you go. If you want to ask me a stupid question and I can't remember the one the other day, somebody had called and ordered a head gasket from him, asked 50 questions about it and then calls back and cancels the order. And then he's like, so then, an hour later, I get an order from one of my vendors that I sell parts to, and it's shipped to the same person, and he's like, openly slamming the guy. And in a way, I kind of admire that because it's like the fact that he was willing to face that potential challenge and, not afraid of the results of it. Just, whatever, I'm going to say it. I don't care. And I thought that was a really interesting concept because I never expected to see something like that turn out.
Is it our desire to be liked or at least respected or not wanting to? I don't know what it is. Like, a lot of people say, oh, I don't care what other people think.
But you do.
What gives you the cojones, Kylan, to post the stuff that you do?
Man,
because he's done that too, Lucas. He's done the exact same thing. Some guy stiffs him for $40 that, hey, he lets him go. And hey, I'll hit you up on Friday, dude. I'll hit you up on Friday. Friday rolls around. 2 weeks later, you see him rolling down talking about how he just picked up the new Xbox. And Kylan's like, dude, where's my $40, man? And then you see him blast them on the internet.
Oh, that's
hilarious. It's difficult, man. I mean, you gotta. It's just like being political. You have to. I mean, like Lucas, your guy there. I admire that for him to take a screenshot and be like, this guy did so and so, and this is exactly what I said to him. And some of those people have such a following that it won't matter. It will actually gain them business for that guy blasting another guy.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
That's. I'd have to. David will have to show you. David, you remember when I did the 12 steps to changing a tire?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, I'll have to send it to you. Well, I did a photo shoot, and I didn't have a whole lot of clothes on during the photo shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disgusting.
It was great, though, man. It blew up, dude. It blew up. It was like 20-something hundred shares on Facebook. And I did this about 3 years ago. And every now and then I'll get a notification about somebody commented on it or somebody shared it. And I've got zero bad feedback for it, except one time somebody was like, oh, old so-and-so would be rolling around in their grave. And still to this day, I have customers that come say, hey man, aren't you the guy that took your clothes off? And like, it's crazy. Like you would think something.
I remember that.
Yeah. Something so negative like that you think would destroy your business, but it did nothing but help.
That is, and I think I
think you could do that, Lucas. You could pull that off.
Listen, I don't think so. If
oh, it was great.
If I had
ass cheeks hanging out and everything,
everything, man.
No, I promise that will absolutely result in a very bad response from all involved. And I would say the same about David. David, whatever you do,
no, it would not go well for me at all. Like, is it the area? Is it just we're in an overly uptight area? I mean, I'm in Johnson County. Like, it carries a reputation, dude.
Yes.
Hey, listen, there's a lot. I need to clarify this, okay? I need everybody listening to hear this. If you are one of my local friends in this community and you just heard that, he's not talking about Johnson County, Tennessee. Okay? I promise you that's not what he's talking about. I have tons of respect for folks in Johnson County, but I just want everybody to know that when he said uptight, he wasn't talking about Johnson County, Tennessee.
No, I was not.
No, our area. Well, your area, not mine.
Yeah, he's in Independence, Missouri.
Yeah.
which carries a reputation, at least around here.
Yes, it does. But I think part of that is the area as well, man. I think that's why I can get away with so much of that. But because the business has been around so long, my face isn't established with that yet. So I'll still I'll be out there doing the work myself, and I'll still have people that wonder who owns it or who runs the place. So they don't quite know it's me, which is great. That works out because one, I want to know what they think about the business before I step in and say, oh yeah, I've been doing it for this long. So I want to know that what they think, and then if there's anything I can improve on, and I try to make that look. To me, it's about optics, about what I look like. I don't have to be down there getting my hands dirty, but I do. And I want those guys to understand that. And I want the employees to understand that. I'm not just some schmuck that comes in here once a day, takes money and leaves type of deal.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I know, Dave.
Just tell me how much money you made today. That's all I want to know. Don't get me involved.
No.
That's the dream.
Yeah, right.
Where's my money?
Better have my money. But
where's my money, bro? Where's my money?
But all of us know that it doesn't quite work like that.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Not always, at least. I mean, there's guys that are in ASOG, Kylan, because you just joined. There are guys in ASOG that are sitting on 3, 4, 5, 6 shops.
Boy,
I mean, they absolutely do not go into. I mean, they might go to a corporate office where they have a support staff for their 6 or 10 locations, and that's a completely different type of model than what we're doing.
Oh yeah,
I'm not knocking it, by the way. That's
no.
He's knocking.
I heard the knock. Did you?
Yeah, exactly. I did too. I heard.
What's wrong with it? That's not fine. I don't know.
We know you hate the corporate world, Dave. It's okay.
It's yeah. Well, I got out of it for a reason. I don't. When you're talking about automotive repair, like I know it's scalable because there are a lot of people that have successfully scaled it.
Oh yeah,
but there's a certain level of craftsmanship to automotive repair that, for me personally, I would find it really difficult to scale and do so and be comfortable with it. Does that make sense?
Be comfortable with the work going out the door. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Because
you're
it's not
willing to lie, cheat, and steal to get what you want. Well, I mean, you are, but not that bad.
No. That's my point. I'm not implying that I know some of them do lie, cheat, and steal. You see it when some of these customers come in and they're like, oh, they told me this, and it's just not true. And it's not even like it's not even misdiagnosed things, or they're giving the customer wrong information. They may not even realize that it's wrong information, but they should know better than to say it so confidently. They should at least admit that I'm not sure, and not paint that picture to the customer and make the customer think that they absolutely need to do this, that, and the other. But at the same time, I also don't want to be the guy that says, oh, everybody is out stealing from the customer. I have this Facebook group. It's called Ask a Mechanic, and it's in the last few months, it's quadrupled in size.
You know why?
And why is that?
It's because when we created the ASOG podcast Facebook page, it added me as an admin to your group, and I've just been approving everybody.
Just get the notification.
No, so I shut down the comments because there were a lot of spammy comments that were coming through, and so if they haven't posted or they haven't been previously approved to post on there, they have to go through me for me to approve their comment or their post if they're posting for the first time. So, but there was somebody on there that there was a discussion about a brake job. Some gal got a quote for $1,500 on her vehicle, and or $2,000, something like that. It was brakes and ball joints and this, that, and the other, or whatever. And this guy gets on there and he's like, some shops double dip. There's no reason to charge for a brake fluid flush and we don't even use the word flush, but a brake fluid flush when doing brakes, because all they have to do is, pump the brakes a few times and top off the master cylinder. And that was the guy's comment. And I've been, keeping an eye on what he's been saying this, and he thinks himself a mechanic or whatever, but what he said was flat out wrong. My $3,000 BG whatever machine that I have to roll over and put 2 bar of pressure on the master cylinder in order to be able to bleed the brakes at all on this Volkswagen, or some manufacturers that you have to run the automated bleed procedure with a scan tool and also have pressure on the master cylinder, like Ford, right? You have to have 30 psi of pressure on the master cylinder, plus you have to run the automated bleed procedure for the stupid thing to get the air out of the system. What he was saying was absolutely wrong. That costs money over and above doing the brake service. You're putting rotors and pads on. That's not the same thing. This is a different procedure requiring a different skill level, different equipment, everything. It's different. I need to charge for that. He didn't understand it because he's not in a professional environment and he doesn't see the cost. He just thinks, oh, home mechanic, I'm just going to pump the brakes. That's not the way it works. And so I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who says, oh, they're just double dipping. No, I'm not double dipping. But I also see the shops that are double dipping.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's why my hesitancy and I don't know, and seeing shops scale. One location to 2 locations, okay, I get it. 3 locations, all right. 4, 5, 6.
Come on now. Is it even necessarily locations? You've said it before. It can simply be, turning a blind eye to the new service advisor, right?
Yeah.
Turning your head and a lot of it, I think, comes back to culture and teaching your guys what you believe is right and doing the right thing. But, even then, a service advisor may not know what the right thing is.
Yeah.
May not know what the honest and ethical thing is. The tech comes in and says this, those are ethical dilemmas I'm faced with. Right. And let's be honest. I was thinking about that when you said that. I think it was 3 weeks ago in one of the recordings. You said, and the shop owner just turns a blind eye, right? They're just like, oh, I don't want to hear it. Just do what you do. And I think, here I am. I'm
just hit the numbers.
Right. I'm down here trying to work on the shop and build the new shop. Am I having too much lenience and I'm not paying attention? Am I not, and little things like that I stress about. We have situations in the shop that the guys come to me and they're like, hey, how do you want us to handle this? And I have to stop and think about it. Yeah. It's not as simple as just saying, just whatever you think.
Yeah.
No, you got to think about what the right thing is. And sometimes even when I do what I think is right in that moment, I go back later and I'm like, damn, that wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah. I wish I'd done this instead.
For sure.
And so, I don't think it's as easy. And you take the owner out of the equation, right? You take the owner out of the equation. He's not on the front counter. He's not in the shop every day. Man, it becomes really, really hard to keep the shop ethical and doing what it's supposed to do.
You know what it really comes down to is the level of skill and quality coming out of one location where the owner's involved. Even if you don't have the most skilled technicians, if you have a own technician turned owner, they're the final line to ensure that vehicle leaves in a good condition. Exactly. Does that make sense?
That's 100%.
And so because they're involved every single day, they don't need to have the best technicians. Now, as soon as you start scaling, now you have to ensure that the best people are working for you. And people can say, yeah, I've got the best people. But that doesn't scale. The best, quote unquote, best technician does not scale.
Right.
By the time you get to the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th location, now you're no longer looking for craftsmen. You're looking for production guys. You're looking for minimum level of a minimum acceptable level of performance. That's it. And now you still have to sell like you've got the best technicians ever. You still and you heard it in that training class that you were in, Lucas. Sell your technician's expertise. Be confident in the expertise of your technicians and their abilities. Be confident when you're talking to the customer that, yeah, our guys know what they're doing. But that may not be true. So you may not be outright lying, but you may be disingenuous in telling the customer.
Lie to them, though.
What's that?
They actually said the words, just lie to them.
Just lie.
And oh God. See,
They really
that's
said
my
that?
point. Yes,
They really
in the
said
training and
Oh my God.
and here's the thing, like so this happens all the time, man. I'm telling you, this happens all the time. These shop service advisors, they're under a certain amount of pressure to hit numbers because again, the owner is just reading financials. That's what they're doing. They're reading financials and they're like, hey, they're looking at their KPIs and this service advisor is underperforming. So now the service advisor is under a certain amount of pressure to sell. The only way you can sell effectively is to be confident in what it is that you're selling. And some people can compartmentalize that in their heads and they go, it's just a paycheck. It's just a paycheck. It's just a paycheck. They know that person, those technicians, 3, 4, 5 technicians in the back are not good technicians, but they still have to sell like it is. And I think that's where the disconnect is, where if that shop owner was in the business, even if those 4 or 5 technicians were not the best, they would ensure that the quality of work leaving was still as good as it could possibly be, because the owner would care enough to know that this not, my comebacks aren't just a percentage on the P&L. My comebacks matter. And it's because I want to make sure the customers trust me and they know that we are skilled craftsmen and that we are putting out the best possible quality work. Where once it scales, now it's just get it in and out, produce the number, and as long as your comebacks don't go over this line here, we're good. We're going to make money. Everybody will be happy.
And then
we'll go out and do go-karting on the weekends. What's that?
Then they learn to manipulate that line, right? They learn to manipulate the comeback line. And here's the thing, though, is in a way
to the customer's expense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To the customer's expense.
Well, who else's expense?
Well,
they'll eat it to a certain point.
Well, yeah.
They'll eat it. We eat a lot of stuff, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it was either my mistake or I didn't quote it out properly. It was like some level of incompetence on our end that I'm not going to penalize the customer for. Okay.
Well, here's the thing: is it's super depressing, right? I mean, let's be real about it. It's super depressing, and it sucks because you want to grow, you don't want to be in the shop all the time. It's hard to find technicians, so I can understand how it can be a really kind of like, man, this is a bummer of a situation.
That's what I'm saying. Like automotive repair, just I don't know how you can say, yeah, it scales.
Right. Well, I mean,
it scales, but you have to give up a lot of stuff. Like,
well, and even if you don't want to scale, right? Even if you're just going to be a single facility or if you want to go on vacation and you can implement processes and policies and procedures, things that minimize that
to a certain point.
Yeah. It's not a foolproof way to fix it. And if you have a culture in your shop or you have a situation where techs would be okay doing something like that, man, really quickly you can get into a nightmare of a spot. And
well, that's what I'm saying. Like if you stay small, and that's very relative. I'm not talking 1-man band or I'm not talking 2 technician or whatever. If you stay relatively small, it's easier to find super high quality people because you're not filling 5 technician spots. You're filling 1. Okay, well, now where I had to hire all 5 of those guys before, I don't need to hire all 5 of those. I just need to hire the 1 and then build them up to a certain level where you're comfortable letting them go. They're going to make the right decision regardless.
Well, so here's what I was going to say though, right? So you've got a choice, right? You generate more revenue, right? Which I think everybody could stand to generate more revenue. So this is one of the things we've talked about. Terry that works for me is an amazing technician. And Terry gets super bummed out and he's like, man, I didn't turn enough hours. I'm like, dude, I'll put whatever hours you want on something, but you need to come talk to me first. I can't do it retroactively. You've got to come talk to me so I can do it first. And I always talk about Terry as more of a restoration technician, You know what I mean? Like, he is so thorough. He's like, I just
Yeah.
want to know it's right. I just want it to be perfect. And I go back to what Rick always said is perfection is a lie told by the devil to steal the dreams of men. It wasn't, and he always says, listen, there was only one perfect human being, and we crucified him. And he was always telling me, look, you're trying to make these cars perfect. They weren't perfect when they rolled off the assembly line.
Yeah.
Because I was always really focused on quality and making sure it was right. And I was spending so much time making sure everything on it was perfect.
Yeah.
And I wasn't charging for it. So I think there's a way to charge for that if you want to configure in that way. I also think that there are ways that we can build systems, like I said, that ensure that we are still taking care of the client. But now here's what gets me is that in many, many situations, what I believe is happening, and the reason that I believe we're having all of these negative reviews of shops, things like that, is because if you go back and look, the consumer wasn't educated. They just knew something didn't work. They just knew things weren't going the way they expected them to go. They just knew that they were unhappy with the car because this happened, right? Remember the story about the Volvo that you told? The whole rear differential deal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it really, at the end of the day, played out to her not having the knowledge that she needed about her automobile. And it's not her job to have that knowledge.
Yeah.
It's our job to be explaining that and giving that information. But at the end of the day, it still didn't freaking matter.
Yeah.
They did everything right. It still didn't matter. So what do you say to the owners who say, I can do a perfect job. I can make the automobile 100% perfect and they don't care. Or I can make the automobile 50% perfect. They still don't care. I take just as much risk of getting a bad reputation, a bad name, taking a bad hit as doing.
That's a good counter argument.
Yes, it
having
is.
half-ass making, 10 times the amount of money. Now, I'm not saying it's right. Don't misunderstand. But how do you see
what's the rebuttal? No, I see the argument perfectly. You're right. He's technically correct.
And if the consumer
can't tell the difference. This is with the big hoopla with ADOS, dude. We've been talking about it. The customer doesn't know the difference. The shop knows the customer doesn't know the difference. Now with ADOS, it could be potentially life threatening. It could be dangerous. But there's no lights on.
Hold up. I want to bring up something. And I have toyed with this. I've thought about this over and over and over again. I've mentioned it to other people. You said something to me 4 weeks ago. We were talking about a specific training class, and you said, the truth is the truth. There is no other. There is no gray. There is no multicolor.
Yeah.
It is black or it is white. It is the truth is the truth. There is no alternative to the truth. That is what the truth is.
Yeah.
How do we do that in a world that's so dynamic?
That's difficult. That really is.
When truth is moving and when the consumer goes to Bob down the street and Bob tells his truth, you've told your truth, and now they take it to Steve down the street and Steve tells his truth.
Yeah.
Which truth is true?
Well, that's not the point. Is that there's either truth and it's not Steve's truth.
Absolutely.
So really, what it comes down to, I don't think there's
perspective.
It's
perspective.
No.
Each
it's not
person
perspective.
can have their own perspective.
No. But one person's going to be wrong. I'm just telling you, one person's going to be wrong.
That's absolutely true.
I think
but
the rebuttal,
way they describe the truth,
because they believed it.
Yeah, it's a different perspective of your.
I don't think that deep down they know. Deep down they know. Deep down, there's an ulterior motive. Something has stepped in the way. They'd like to tell the truth, and then they're like, but I won't get the sale, so I'm going to say this instead.
No. Hold up. I want to reframe this because you're not seeing where I'm saying.
Okay.
Let's say a client comes into your shop, and you say, Mrs. Client, it's not our fault that wheel came off. And Mrs. Client goes to another shop, and that shop says, well, they just worked on it. It's clearly their fault the wheel came off of it.
They're not
Now,
saying
they may not understand.
Well,
Right?
hold
They
on
may
now.
not-
That is not a true statement. They don't know.
Exactly.
Well, that's my
But
point.
from
is
their
that
perspective,
their perspective is, I'm going to try to get the sale. I'm going to convert that customer. That's what the Volvo dealership did to that lady. They're
but
like,
is that maybe they're not trying to do that? Maybe all they're trying to do is, hey, I really think this guy tried to take advantage of you. Hey, I really think this person tried to rip you off.
But
What
they're
if they
not
truly
selling-
believe that?
they may truly believe it, but they're not making true statements. They can't know without
They
a
can't
shadow of
make
a
true
doubt.
statement.
What's that? That
They don't have the knowledge to make a true
exactly.
statement.
So how could they be saying anything at that point then? They're saying things that they don't know to be true. They may be true, but they have no idea, so they really shouldn't be saying anything.
But they're
And
going to
That's
say
where
it.
you run into a
See?
problem.
And so you've come full circle to my whole point.
That they shouldn't be saying anything.
Well, they shouldn't be saying anything, but you got to say something. How do we navigate this?
Well,
The
I
consumer
say it all
doesn't
the
know,
time.
other
It's like,
shop
I don't
doesn't
know why your wheel came off. The wheel came off. Like, did this shop screw me over? I mean, I've had people bring me invoices, and you look through it, and you're like, looks fair. I don't know that I would have done it this way. That's what I tell customers. I don't know that I would have done it this way. They should have. If it were me, I would have added this part and this part and this part, and I would have charged you for this, this, and this differently. And it would have turned out to be more money or less money or whatever. But it's a matter of opinion there. Now it's my perspective, but it's not. I'm not saying it objectively true. To tell somebody that, yeah, I was intentionally, that shop was trying to screw you over. You don't know what was going on. You have no idea. So you are being disingenuous at the very least, and that's being charitable to say that. Disingenuous to the customer for whatever your motivation is. You shouldn't be opening your mouth. You shouldn't be saying anything. You should be deflecting, if anything, or just flat out coming out and saying, "I just don't know. I can't tell you that for sure." That's what they were trying to do.
And I agree, right?
But back to your point, because you laid out a very good counter argument. I said we need to have, in my opinion, you cannot have skilled craftsmen in the bays and then scale that, because at some point you're going to have to fill the bays with somebody, and you're going to start lowering your minimum acceptable level of performance to a certain point where you can still remain profitable. And so the work that's leaving, like you're saying, customer can't tell the difference between perfect and 50% perfect. The car still runs. And so the 100% perfect, you're not going to make the money, and you're not going to be able to scale. At 50% perfect, you're scaling and making the money.
And the client doesn't know the difference.
And the client doesn't know the difference. So that's why a lot of shops have made the decision that, yeah, I'm going to go 50% because that makes sense. The math works out. And it does. I don't have a rebuttal to that. That's a fantastic argument. We were just talking about arguments and trying to derive truth from the arguments. I don't have an answer to that argument. The only thing I can say is that if my technician, whoever that happens to be, if I have 15 technicians, 25 technicians work for 100 technicians working for me, if I can't say unequivocally that customer or that technician did to that car exactly how they would want their mother's vehicle or a loved one, a wife or husband or grandma's car to be, they didn't leave it in the condition they would want grandma's car to leave in. If I can't say that unequivocally about absolutely everybody in my organization, then I would scale down. Well, because for me, I can't sleep at night.
Yeah, and I can't either. But,
so we will never have the boats.
Well, and I don't want a boat, so it's okay. I don't.
You can have a boat. It's just going to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be a dinghy.
it's going to be a little John boat, which is fine. Yeah. It's still a boat.
No, David's going to need one that you blow up.
Mine will be a raft. Trust me.
Going to have to be a big raft.
A big raft. Fence posts and some rubber tires and yeah.
So here's my other thought though: is that you can't police that, right? We all know that we would want the very best for a loved one, right? But you go tell a technician that, and you can't police it. It's very difficult, and it's very dynamic, and it can change, and their mood and the way things are happening. And
yeah, but
pressure in
hold
the
on.
shop.
You can't police it. But if you've got people in your shop where you're like, oh, my wife's car's coming in, or my mom's car's coming in, or grandma's car's coming in, don't have Johnny work on it. Give it to Ricky. Ricky will do it right. Well, why do you have Johnny working on anybody's car?
Yeah,
then?
he shouldn't be in the shop.
He shouldn't be in your shop. But
right.
But he's making you money, and the comebacks are minimal. But he, sometimes he breaks things, doesn't put clips back, doesn't route the line properly, doesn't route the wire loom properly, and so there are problems with his work that the customer never catches that about. I mean, you don't want that guy touching your car, but the other technician you're okay with. That's where you're like,
point.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I agree with that. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess I just come back around to the fact that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. Right? Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
They work with people that they have a relationship with, and so I think that relationship is so important. And I think the realization that things are going to go wrong, things aren't always going to be fixed right. We're all going to have problems. Standing behind it and fixing it when it's done is the key, right? Like if something goes wrong, we're just going to make it right. I don't know. I've struggled with this, guys. I really have. I mean, I don't know the right answer.
But here's the thing. Like, this is like, I don't know why you would struggle so much at your shop, because if you've got Eric or you've got Terry, and you would have either one of those guys working on your personal vehicle or your wife's vehicle
Absolutely.
or whatever, then
questions asked.
There's
all three of my guys, no questions asked.
Well, then there you go. Same, and I'm the same way. All three of my guys, I have absolutely no problem handing my keys to any of them, and they've all worked on my car in some capacity. I don't know, maybe I'm not sure about Brandon, but I know Chris and Nick both worked on my personal vehicles, and I have no problem with that. And I don't babysit them, and I don't watch what they're doing. I trust them, and therefore I trust them with but if I bring a fourth guy in, I got to know I trust them. And if
Absolutely.
it's a fifth guy and sixth and seventh, I've got to trust all seven. Otherwise, I'm not hiring that guy. And so
hence you hear my struggle, because I'm getting ready to have to hire people. And it's almost scary to me, because it's a culture that is very, very important to us. We are a family here, right? We really take that very, very seriously. And so we're getting ready to change that dynamic, for one. So that's a little scary for me.
Yeah.
But also I sit back and let's be real. I'm looking at these shops that I've always looked up to and read about in the magazines. And, we talked about
how they were getting trained.
And then you find out how they were getting trained, and some of the things that they talk about, some of the things that they do. And I can't help but look back and question.
All of a sudden, and they turned a blind eye to it, or they dismissed it. And they're like, well, it's not like that. No, it is like that. You're either ignoring it, or you're obtuse to it, or you don't care, or none of those are good answers. Well, any of them are going to bother me.
Listen, when you have an industry expert who comes in and says, no, it's okay because, right? Yeah. And they excuse it away.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they say, well, that's not really what it meant because of this. And you keep putting another answer. You have an answer for every time.
Yeah.
You take away the right is right and wrong is wrong. Right. Yeah. Because that, I talk about my dad, his morals, his personality, and what a good human being he is, and has always been to everybody in his life. And when you talk to him, there is no in between. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And we all make mistakes. We all do things the wrong way. And we all, that is life. But there is no, you know what I mean? That's the extent of it. Right is right and wrong is wrong. So I don't know. I struggle with that. I struggle with looking at these people who do that. And I think that they get convinced into that. Now, I've talked to some people about training classes, not one particular training classes, but lots of training classes, and talked about some of the things that that we've experienced and heard about. And, I was even talking to one who ended up leaving a coaching company because of some of the experiences we talked about the way some were being trained. And he went back and reviewed material from his training classes he had been in and was like, I turned a blind eye to that. They were talking about it's this class and you take what you want and you don't take what you don't want.
Yeah.
And I thought that made it okay. So I just overlooked it. And now I'm looking back thinking, man, I'm not okay with that. I can't be involved with any of it if I'm not okay with that portion of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's a weird scenario for sure.
I was I was over there actually at Dave's shop earlier today to grab this microphone from him because
Right.
every podcast I've ever done's been on my phone, so it hasn't been anything quite like this. And
Right.
He was showing me around over there, and they redid the back portion. I don't know if he told you about that or not.
Yeah, he sent me pictures. It's pretty.
It looks great, and he got a hell of a deal on it too, of course.
Right.
And yeah. He was showing me. He was like, "Yeah, this place over here is going to be the bathroom." So of course, that's the bathroom. Coincidentally, is right behind his office.
I know, right? Well, so I hate to bust his bubble. So my new shop, my office is going to have a bathroom in it. My wife's office is going to have a bathroom.
What? Yeah.
And then we're going to have a client bathroom in the front, and then we're going to have a tech bathroom in the back.
That's honestly, that's a great idea to keep all that separated.
Yeah. Who? I think it was Alex Knoll the other day who told a story about using the client bathroom and what a terrible experience it was.
Yeah.
I'll have to make sure I find that and send it.
Oh, that'd be great. And I mean, there's a level of professionalism with that too, keeping those bathrooms separate. Because I don't know about you, man, but I cannot keep my techs to keep that bathroom clean for the life of them.
Dude, it is really tough. And, we've actually got somebody who cleans the bathrooms. And when they're cleaning, they typically clean it 3 to 4 times a day.
Oh, yeah, man. I believe it.
And even little stupid things like keeping the trash can clean.
Oh.
Right? It's a white trash can. And then it gets black fingerprints on it. And then you get hand cleaner all in the sink. And somebody walks in like, somebody threw up in your sink. That's hand cleaner.
That's hand
cleaner. The best way to handle it's walk in, dip your finger in it, and stick it in your mouth. Yeah, that's hand cleaner. I tried today, dry tire.
I would love to have that. I'd love to have a separate bathroom for clients. That would be awesome.
Yeah. That's what we're working towards. I don't know exactly how I'm going to handle the advisor situation because, they're going to have to use the client bathroom if they want to be close. But, the tech bathroom's not that far away. They can just walk in the back. It won't hurt them.
That's enforcing that too. Because, I really had to go. I couldn't walk that extra 10 feet.
I'm going to send them to my wife's bathroom.
There you go.
The other thing is so supposedly, like, you're supposed to have, I can't remember the exact calculation, but typically a bathroom fan can be 100 to 150 CFM and still meet code.
Really?
And it even for a fairly big bathroom. So I have taken care of this. We're putting 500 CFM fans in the bathrooms. So much so that you're lucky if you come out with your clothes.
Just about to say, you're going to have some negative pressure there.
That's it. Yeah. Like suck the doors in. Hopefully it doesn't suck the water out of the toilet. Yeah.
Just to get the smell. We put that Chemical Brothers stripper scent, the smell of success. You ever seen that?
No.
It's why do I have a $220 bill from the gas company? We haven't turned on the gas in months.
It's a deposit. That's what that is.
Hey, it's your wife trying to murder you.
Apparently. So it's a scent.
It's chemical?
Before Chemical Brothers or Chemical Guys. Sorry,
yeah.
Chemical Guys. They had the scent before they started getting distributed in Walmart. Before it was distributed in Walmart, the smell it's like well now it's like sandalwood or whatever.
I'm trying to find it.
But it was stripper scent, and on the bottle it was a silhouette of a stripper, and the bottle said the smell of success.
I found it on Amazon. Yeah, no, it still has a stripper on it.
Well, that's their old bottle. They don't sell that.
Oh
bottle
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. It says same great scent, new look.
Yeah, so the new look is different because they started getting picked up by Walmart, and signature scent, smell of success. It's not stripper scent anymore.
Oh.
So I have a bottle of that, and that's what they spray the bathroom when they come out of the bathroom. They destroy it so badly. It's like stripper scent. So it stinks like stripper every time you walk in there.
Might have to give
I'm
that a
buying
shot.
a couple bottles right now.
Are you?
It's so dumb. It smells so bad. It smells like cocoa butter and glitter.
Oh. Tons of reviews.
Yeah,
I'm gonna spray Eric down with it and send him home. Oh
send
my
him
God.
home to his wife.
Listen, it was so
Throw
bad.
some glitter on him. Throw some glitter on him.
Y'all know what liquid ass is, right?
No.
Yeah.
Liquid
Okay.
ass.
It smells like fart. Yeah.
Well, nah, dude, a fart does not describe this.
Well, okay.
Eric came into the office the other day, and it was like he had just foobarred everything he had touched. And he came in and he's like, got this smart ass attitude, and he's picking on me and telling all these jokes, blah, 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 running his mouth, you know. And before I knew it, Shannon looked up at me. He's sitting in his desk, and he looks up and he kind of, nods at me, and I'm like, what? And all of a sudden, Eric's standing there just running his mouth, and Shannon hands me this bottle of liquid ass. And before I realize what I've done, I've walked up to the back of Eric's head, and I have sprayed all of the hair on the back of his head.
Oh.
Eric's dry heaving, right? Bridget comes in. She walks through the cloud, and she's like, what is that? What is that? Eric, my God, what did you do? Because she's the one who has to clean the bathroom. I look over. Shannon's got tears streaming down his face. The phone's ringing. I'm like, Shannon, just leave it. Just don't even try to answer it. Because I'm dying laughing. He can't breathe. He's hyperventilating. Terry's coming through the door wondering what the hell's going on. Eric's like, fuck you, man. So he's going in the bathroom. Bridget's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. So it's just a terrible, terrible scenario for all involved. And I turn around and look, and there's two clients walking in the door. So I revert back to what I learned as a child. And my dad always did two things that I remember. He would let one rip at the front counter, and him and my mom would be standing there. So he'd let one rip. And if he saw people walking in, he'd walk off. And he'd just let my mom standing there. So I didn't know what else to do. I just walked off. And I'm like, well, Shannon, good luck, buddy.
Good luck.
So like 2 days later, Eric comes in. He still smells like it. He's really super upset about it because like it got in his hair, and he's like, man, it's not so bad when it's in your hair. He's like, I've sprayed what hair I have left with brake cleaner, wiped it all down,
He couldn't wash it out? Is it that bad?
Dude, when you get in the shower and you get it hot, it smells like you just pooped in the shower.
Oh.
It really does. I mean, it is extremely fragrant. I'll make sure I spray David with it at AST.
Don't do that.
I found it on Amazon. 28,000 reviews. Holy shit.
Dude, go watch some videos about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
You should, just go watch some videos. You'll understand.
Oh, man.
So Nathan Bryan posts on ASOG about hiring an addict. And he said, would you hire an addict if you could? If you had the opportunity, the right person, maybe had the right experience, whatever. And overwhelmingly, the answer was no, they would not. And so the reason we have Kylan on is so he can tell his story. And I want to know from him, would you hire an addict, Kylan, or a recovered addict?
Recovering.
Would you hire one to work on your customers' vehicles? Would you trust that person to work on your own vehicle for you? What's your take on this? And tell your story. Talk about what happened to you.
So, try not to jump around in the story too much, but addiction is, that's a touchy subject with a lot of people because some people believe heavily in it. Other people think it's my body, my choice kind of shit. And that's fine. It's whatever you believe, But I am actually, this December, I will be 10 years sober. So that is a great accomplishment for me that it's,
That's awesome.
yeah, 10 years.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you guys. And the height of my addiction, I had a bad heroin problem. I did all the typical heroin thing. You guys had a few weeks. I wouldn't say a few weeks. It's been several weeks ago.
Dusty.
You guys,
Yeah.
Dusty, was that him that was talking
Yeah.
about it? Yeah, I remember that. And I get it. You think like an addict, and I hate to say it, but the thinking doesn't go away, but in a good way, it doesn't go away because you can recognize the patterns of other drug addicts and other alcoholics, any other addict in their life. It doesn't even have to be drugs or alcohol. It could be any. You could be addicted to skydiving, anything like that. You could recognize those patterns with those type of people. So it actually, to me, it helps me judge people. I hate to say judge people, but it helps me judge somebody's character a little bit better if I know that they were once an addict or if they're still struggling with it. And I think that falls back on if you believe addiction is a disease or if you just think it's a choice. And it depends on how you're educated. To me, it's a disease. It got a hold of me and it got the worst of me. And
So you can go into as much detail as you want.
No
I
problem.
find it fascinating. You divulge as much as you want.
I'll get to it, but man, I've watched my girlfriend sleep with another man for drugs. Like it got that bad in my life, and at the time, that's fucking normal. That's normal for that. I've seen other people do it. Why wouldn't I do it? And you don't realize it until you step out of it or you're pulled out of it. That you're like, oh my God, that is not normal. That's not a lifestyle I want to live anymore. To be involved with that, to be involved with people like that, and to do things like that. And I was miserable. I'd work my 10-hour, 8-hour days, come home, get high, and sit on the couch. And I'd veg out. That's not a life. You don't live like that. I used to call it autopilot. You're on autopilot when you do things like that. And it was a struggle for me. I did it heavily for about 3 years until I actually overdosed twice. Dave's familiar with my father. He spent a lot of time with us when we were younger. My father, I was living in a duplex. This is 10 years ago. I was living in a duplex and I was getting high with my girlfriend at the time. And I don't remember, but I overdosed. I collapsed on her. She panicked. She didn't know what to do. So she called my parents. And they came over and they picked me up and they took me to the hospital. And I woke up and my father was carrying his son's body into the hospital. And to this day, I can't even imagine what that was like. David has girls. Lucas, do you have any?
Yeah, I got a little boy.
You got a little boy. I don't know. I can't imagine that, guys.
Well, so I'll tell you, looking back at some of the decisions I made, right? Because I went through some wild times.
Oh yeah.
And, I'm telling you what, when my little girl was born, I called my mom and my dad with tears in my eyes. And I said, I'm sorry. I never realized how much you loved me.
Yeah.
Because you just don't understand. You have that child and all of a sudden things change and the perspective changes. And I think when you're in the thick of it, it's really hard to see the other side. Addiction becomes what you are in a lot of ways. It becomes the focus of everything you do, and you lose focus on anything else, if that makes sense. You don't ever think beyond getting to the next spot where you can achieve that.
Exactly. You don't think about friends. You don't think about family. You don't think about relationships. Nothing.
You don't think 10 years from now. You think 10 minutes from now.
I tell my employees this all the time. I said, life gets a hell of a lot better when you stop thinking about Friday and you start thinking about Monday.
Absolutely.
And that's where I was. I was in that bad place in my life where I needed a paycheck. I needed Friday. Every day needed to be Friday. And those guys were talking about they wouldn't hire that. And to me, I'd sit down and I'd ask questions. I'd want to know. I'd want to learn about you. What made you stop? Because I believe in addiction, everybody has to hit bottom. And if they haven't, if they're still doing drugs, they haven't hit their bottom yet. Sometimes that takes losing every single thing. like Dusty, living on the street. Sometimes that's what it takes, you know. And but I was blessed. Thank God I was blessed with a support system that I never ended up like that. I had a loving family that now that my father's just like your father. He loved me unconditionally. And
Right.
Dad, if I need $20, all right, here's a 50. Don't spend it all at the candy store, kind of shit.
Right.
And they love me. So I was never that bad, but I still did, and I witnessed a lot of terrible things. I stole from a lot of people that I shouldn't have done. I hurt people. I just earlier I said my girlfriend slept with a guy. It was terrible, man. I took my girlfriend to the guy's house. I used to buy pills from him. I took her over there, and they were gonna quote hang out unquote. But I'm not fucking stupid. She's not stupid. The guy's not stupid. I knew better than that. I took her over there with $100. I pick her up in 45 to an hour later. She's got $300 worth of drugs. Like, where the hell did you get the other $200? What service or good did you exchange for $200?
Well, and here's the thing is I think that on the other side of that, boys, does the conscience weigh heavy, right? Wake up 3 a.m., wake up 2 a.m. thinking about it. Man.
Lucas, it doesn't, man. Like, I didn't.
Yeah.
Now it weighs heavy. Like, I don't talk to that girlfriend because she never got sober like I did. So I see her occasionally, and I had, just like your father, I love her, but I love her from a distance,
Yeah.
And
absolutely. Well, and I guess that's my point is that you see that and you have those consequences. Did I lead that person down that path? Did I contribute to that path? Did I took advantage of someone? And you come back later and you look at those situations and those scenarios and you say to yourself, God, I hope nobody remembers that, man. That is so embarrassing. I can't believe I did that. And I think that somebody who is truly clean, who's truly been through that, knows better.
yes,
Right? They know the true cost. Right? But the reality is it takes sobriety to see the true cost.
it does.
It takes absolute sobriety. Now, look, my big thing is I to this day, somebody will walk by me smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, oh man, I'd love to have a cigarette. And I understand that it's always a challenge. So in my community, we had a meth epidemic, right? Everybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people you'd never guess.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Lost everything.
Really good at hiding it, man. Really good.
Absolutely. And it really affected a lot of people. And I think the thing is that if you turn your back on all of them, if you say, no, I won't hire any of them, that's a large portion of the population that you wouldn't hire. That's a lot of people that as a society, we've let go down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it like that, but unless there's a support system, because a lot of these people didn't have support systems like your dad was for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't there to catch you when you fell and to help bring you back from the brink. Right. And so I think as a society, is it society's responsibility? No, it's not. But can we turn our back on them? Now, I'm going to tell you something. We have been through a deal where I've hired family members or hired people and given them, odd jobs, that kind of thing, who had been in prison. And they came out of prison completely sober. And all it took was one person coming and finding them.
Yep.
To lead them astray and their life to go back downhill.
Lucas, right? Oh, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So I spent roughly 45 days in rehab, and I learned, and I'll tell you right now, man, rehab doesn't do jack shit unless you want it to. We don't, anybody, if you want to change, you're going to change if you want to, not because you have to. And I spent Christmas and New Year's in rehab, and I'll tell you what, man, that is still the best Christmas I've ever had in my life. And the day you get out, they shake your hand, they congratulate you and all that. They tell you that you have to change your playmates and play places.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happens, man. Just like you said, it takes that one single person to come around and bring them right back into that same lifestyle. And I've got a couple employees right now. They're actually in halfway houses at the moment. And I worry about that every day. If one of their old one of their old buddies is going to show up at my shop and just, hey man, come out here and look at this, and then distract my employee for 5 minutes. And that's the only 5 minutes that's going to screw their life up again. I worry about that, you know?
Yeah, of course. Well, one of our employees who's actually one of our other businesses employees, RD, he said today, listen, he said it was a personal decision for me. He said, I had to make that decision and nobody else was going to make it for me. It was my decision and I had to decide. And so my question or my thought is, when it comes to hiring somebody, I don't know that there's a way as business owners or business managers that we can know where they're at in that process. We can have that conversation. We can talk to them. I think more than anything, a recovering addict needs structure.
Yes.
And needs expectations. Here's what I need you to do. Here's when I need you to do it. Here's what time you're to arrive. Here's what time you leave. They need to be given a little bit of lenience, right? Leniency, because man, I'm telling you what, just like anybody that's tried to stop smoking cigarettes, you try and stop other things too, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough call whether you should hire somebody who is just recovering from addiction. I don't know.
And you're absolutely right. Structure there, Lucas. When I was in rehab, they gave us jobs around the, I don't want to say compound because that sounds terrible, but there was they had 4 or 5 little cabin house type deals, and in each cabin house you had a roommate, and they let you have a vacuum, and they would give you jobs around the area. So during breakfast, a couple of the people there, they would cook the breakfast, and then a couple more different people, they would do the dishes. I used to raise the flag up and down every morning, every night. And they gave you that job to get you back into structure and back into a routine of living life and being a productive member of society, Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know the statistics, but there's a large number of people who suffer from addiction.
Yes. People that you wouldn't even know.
Exactly. And man, that is a miserable being prisoner to something. Yes. I think that's the only way you can attribute that is being prisoner to something. You have to have it. You don't have a choice. You have to have it. Your mind says, I have to have this. And coming away from that can be a significant challenge. I think to hire or not to hire comes down to stage of recovery.
Stage of recovery. Yes, I agree there.
Where are we? David set off the fire alarm.
Actually, I think that's me, guys. I'm so sorry. Hang on.
Oh, dude, you don't have to be sorry. Just make sure your house isn't on fire.
No, it's a food dehydrator. Hang on. Give me a second, guys.
David, are you awake?
I'm listening to this. It's fascinating.
All right. Sorry about that.
I was just really worried that David's might cut off.
What are you dehydrating?
Actually, it's for the 3D printer. So
of course it is.
Yeah. Filament. See, I didn't. This when you dive into trying to get sidetracked here. When you dive into dive into something like that, like 3D printing, you learn a lot about it that average Joe doesn't know. And apparently, the plastics that you use are I always screw this up. Hydroscopic.
Hydroscopic, like brick fluid.
Yeah, it absorbs moisture. Yeah, and once you pull this plastic out of their vacuum package seal, you only have so much time before they absorb moisture, and you cannot print with them. So they recommend actually a cheap food dehydrator. You stick it in there for a few hours, it pulls the moisture out, you're good to go.
That's badass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But anyways, I'm sorry I got off track there.
So did you say you would hire an addict or you wouldn't?
So yeah, it depends on where he's at. Just like Lucas was saying, depends on where he's at inside his recovery, So
I've never messed with anything.
You don't have that over there.
Weed, like nothing.
You.
That would really help. I'm just going to be honest with you. A little bit of THC would probably turn you down a touch.
I smoked cigarettes when I was like
I think it'd make it worse.
18.
You think so?
Man, because some guys it mellows them out. I think it would make Dave worse. I think it would.
See, there you go. So quit pushing it. All I'm saying is, so I've never been around any of it, and I've had employees when I was in my parts store days. I had this one guy that was the one I can remember just off the top of my head because he stole a lot of money from the store, and he would come in like super tired. He was such a good guy too. He would come in super tired. He would go into the bathroom. He'd come out glassy eyed, and then he
Oh,
would be wired, and he would be running 100 miles an hour, jumping on like, oh, Mr. Customer, I can take care of that. And he was winning customer service awards within his first few months of being at the store. But all of a sudden, money started missing. And his girlfriend would come in and would always have like big, thick sunglasses. And she was always really thin. And she'd be like, no, I just got to talk to Josh. I just got to talk to Josh. Oh, okay. Okay. Josh would come out, talk to her or whatever. She'd go away. I mean, he was stealing money to feed their addiction. I get it. That's what was happening. But I mean, I didn't know. And you didn't want to think that's what happened. But my mind just didn't go there. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if I hired somebody that was previously an addict, where you're saying that you could identify the traits, you'd be able to see, hey, something's up.
exactly. And you
I
can,
would.
But that's not, I don't know if in my area, I get that a lot, man. I mean, I'm not going to lie, dude. 1 out of 5 customers is a crackhead. I hate to say that. I really do. But that's.
No, I don't. Listen, I don't think it's just your area. And I think the same is true for employees. I think there are more addiction problems than we could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody that's experienced addiction or seen it in their families, man, they know the warning signs.
Oh, yeah.
They see it. They pick up on it. You see the client that comes through the door and they're scratching and they're getting the twitch and they're
glassy
chewing on
eyes,
their
man.
earlobes.
That's what I look for now.
Glassy eyes.
No, glassy eyes, I mean, maybe a stoner. And yeah, I mean, there's other stuff too. But I mean, if they're chewing on their earlobe, I know for a fact.
But if they spend
Well,
money.
Like when I lived in Central Illinois, we had a lot of tweakers who would come in, and you knew they were on meth, and half the time they stunk.
Oh, yeah.
Like meth. Like you knew what was going on. They were super obvious. I'm talking about the people that would spend 15, 20 minutes in the bathroom. You knew they weren't taking a crap. And so, but they would come out with energy and glassy eyed.
I mean, the pupils are typically the telltale sign of that.
The pupils. Okay.
Yeah, if they're huge.
So is it a matter of you having been an addict yourself? Therefore, you know the behaviors, you know how they'll act. You'll be able to tell.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
What's going on. So you're more apt to hire an addict or a recovering addict because you can keep an eye on them. Or is it like, oh, I don't even want to be involved. Like, I know how they all are. I'm not even going to bother. I mean, what approach do you take?
I knew where I was and the things I did, you have to, like Lucas said, I can't say yes and no. That's difficult. It depends on where they're at and their recovery, man. And I always say recovery because it's a slippery slope. I fuck up tomorrow, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's.
So what do you ask?
I guess what would you ask? I'd ask how long they've been sober, and certain people trade addictions for one thing or another. Sober off what? Okay, well, never mind. I don't need you if you're going to tell me that. But yeah, I'm living in a halfway house. I've been sober 6 months from now. I'm trying to get a job, and that's in certain circumstances like that. It's honorable for those people to tell you that right off the bat. I'm in a halfway house. I'm getting sober. This is my situation. I'd rather know now than a few weeks from now when I've hired you, I've put time and energy training you,
Sure.
and then you fuck up royally because that's usually what happens. And so I think I would start there. I try to figure out where they're at in their recovery. If they've been sober 3 days, okay, you need to go somewhere and get help for a little bit, then come back. If you have 3, 4, 5 months, you're still not there. You're still vulnerable. You're still looking for answers, and you're still probably reaching out to people you shouldn't be talking to. So I think it's difficult to put a time on that. It's difficult to say, okay, he's been sober 3 years now, he's good to hire him. You can't. I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, there's not a time, and the thing is the guy who's picked up and said, "Listen, I've moved away from all of those influences. I switched towns. I came to a different area."
Do they say that though?
I've actually what was it? The last guy that I hired, really good kid, man, bust his ass. His name's Danny. He said he just moved up here from Springfield. He had to get away from all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a pretty big step, right? It's a scary step for somebody like that. But I think things like that are true tells. The fact that they're really trying to get away from it. I think that the openness and transparency about it.
Transparent. Yeah. They teach you that in rehab, man, to be transparent and to, be predictable, you know?
Yeah. I think just like you said, though, I think as a business owner who's serving clients, we have a responsibility to our clients, and being around those people who face those addictions, because let's be real. I remember hearing a statistic at one point when they were talking about meth saying less than 1% of those who use meth will ever recover. Right.
Is it really that dire? 1%?
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Dude, that's nuts.
And so if that is the case, and I know a lot of people who have recovered, so I don't know that that's accurate. I think in the group of people that I know, I think that it's higher than 1%. I would say 15%.
It's still depressing.
Well, I mean, here's the deal: is I think you've got to be super careful. I don't know. Man, I hate to say you shouldn't hire them. I hate to say that somebody shouldn't get a chance. But I've got family members, man, that they have never and will never, ever come away from that. They have no interest in changing. They could be a productive, good employee. It doesn't mean they'd be a bad employee, but they're not reliable.
Yeah, not reliable. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for me. It's not that they're stealing. It's not that they're using drugs while at the shop or something like that. It's they're not reliable. And one of the biggest things that an auto repair shop needs, or any employer needs, is I need you to be reliable because I'm depending on you. And that is an area that they suffer. It doesn't mean they'll steal from you. It doesn't mean that they're going to be out here doing crank behind the shop. It just means that they're probably not going to be nearly as reliable. They're going to be very apt to up and change or say, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't have to, and dip out. And if you've got somebody that you truly need to depend on, especially in the first 5 years of sobriety, whether it's alcohol, whether it's meth, whether it's heroin, whatever it is, I don't know that I could advocate for putting them in a frontline position where you need to depend on.
Not frontline, that's for sure. I've seen guys with 2 weeks of sobriety last a day. I've seen guys with 6 months last 3 days. Not frontline, and that's the reliability thing, man. And that's what fucks us all. We're not scaled up. There's not 12 employees. There's 4 or 5 of us, and when one of them goes missing, that screws up the whole day.
Yep. Exactly. And I think if you put systems in place, so let's say you want to hire somebody like that. Okay. You have to be here at this time. If you're not here at this time, this is the consequence. Hey, you're not to have visitors. I'm not to have visitors. What in the world are you talking about? We're not doing that. Let me be really clear with you. You're here to work. And I have said this to people, and they'll say, listen, it's not your job and you can't tell me I can't have visitors. No, if somebody in your family, if it's an emergency, something like that, that's one thing.
They can call the shop.
You call the shop.
They can call the shop. They can reach out. But I don't want you to have visitors because you've expressed to me that you truly want to recover. I've been down this road before. I don't want you having people coming out here.
So I think that kind of approach is very pragmatic, right? You're trying to give the guy a chance, but you're trying to put boundaries in place to protect yourself, but also extend a helping hand out to this person. I'm incapable of it. I've never been down that road. I haven't experienced it. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what's overstepping boundaries. I don't know what's excessive.
I think the realization that I just came to in this conversation is if you've not been an addict or you have not worked with someone who is an addict, then you should not hire an addict. If you don't have a family member or something like that, you don't have specific training or have experienced it, I don't think it's a good idea.
It's not, because you won't ever. I don't want to say understand, but you won't be able to put yourself in their shoes for a few minutes. Especially
exactly
reliability thing. Like, I got employees that have never touched pot, and they don't understand if the former dope head doesn't show up. Why, they don't get that stuff. So it puts you in a hard position too. Like, well, why'd you hire him? You knew he was going to do that type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing is that if you don't know the signs to watch for, you don't know when to back away.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know when to say, man, hey, listen, I can tell. I already know. What are we going to do here?
Yeah.
You going to rehab? You going to get some help, or are we going our separate ways? Right? Because there's a very fine line. Look, helping people is one thing. Enabling people is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Because if you begin to enable someone, you're doing far more harm than you are good. Right? By keeping someone on and continuing to give them money when they're going through something like that, and they come in and say, man, I just need to, is there any way I could just borrow $100, just $100? Can I just get $100? Well, I'll go get you some food and I'll fill up your car with gas. No. I just need $100 cash. No, you ain't getting it, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like until you understand that scenario and know the things to watch for and hear the things that they're talking about. And the problem is that if you're not watching for those things, then what ends up happening is then you say no to them, and you don't know that, hey, now I need to be thinking he might be stealing from me.
Yeah.
He might be taking shop supplies and selling cans of brake cleaner,
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. And that doesn't mean he's a bad person. You need to understand what addiction does, what addiction makes you think, and the thought process it creates. And that's really, really hard to do if you've not been in those shoes.
That's he's not stealing brake part cleaner to get at you, to get back at you for not giving you the cash. He's stealing that to feed his addiction.
Yep.
And I've been there, man. I hate to say that, but I've been that fucking employee that's done terrible things to my boss so that I could feed that addiction. And like I said at the time, it doesn't have anything to do with him. I don't give a shit about him. I need this money. I need this product. I need to do this to make sure that I get high tonight, or else I'm screwed. I'm going to feel like shit, and I'm not going to come anymore.
Right. The money doesn't even seem, in a scenario like that, I don't even think that the money seems like it's valuable.
It's not.
The money doesn't seem like anything. It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right. There's no thought about the money. There's no thought about how it affects somebody else. There's no thought about what it's doing or the reputation it'll create for you or the fact it's illegal. All of the thought is getting the reward.
And that's the hard part about it, man. It's like you said, there's no value to that dollar at the end of the day, because it's just getting passed along to whoever to feed your addiction.
Yep.
So that's difficult to say.
I think we need to do a case study. We'll find some folks who are in an addiction scenario, and we will have David hire them.
There we go.
I told you I've hired addicts before. I had no idea that they were using. I didn't know. And after the fact, look, the guy jacked almost $1,000 out of the drawer, and I couldn't. No, I covered the first 100, the first 50, the first whatever. Like, you short the drawer, you take it out of your pocket, you put it in the drawer. You don't want to think that this guy that keeps coming up with this short on his drawer is stealing from you. And so you sit down, you're like, this is the second time that you've been short on your drawer. What's going on? You have a heart-to-heart. You can tell that, look, I'm not stealing from you. I promise I'm not stealing from you. I've had grown-ass men crying, telling me that they didn't steal from me, and they swear that I don't know what happened. I just need to slow down and count more carefully. And then a few weeks later, $700 comes up missing out of the drawer. And you're like, well, I can't cover $700. Like, there's going to have to be an investigation. We're going to have to do something about this. You find out the guy was using and was stealing from you. I didn't know to look for the signs. Like, I had no idea. I really didn't. And you always want to think the best of people. That's the other problem too.
Yes.
You're always trying to think the best of somebody, and certainly that's not the case. Certainly that can't be happening. So yeah, no, I'm a terrible candidate for that.
Well, and do you think that that's why so many shop owners have gotten this? You know, we talk all the time how shop owners are always quick to respond in ASOG. I'll just fire them.
Yes,
just fire them.
I've noticed
just
that.
Fire them. Do you think it is just because they have experienced so much of that? They have been burnt so much.
For some of them, I think it's just easy to say fired. You know, they haven't. It's not their shop. It's not. You're not going to end up shorthanded.
They don't have that emotional.
Yeah, they don't
connection.
have the attachment. You don't. You know, it's always easy to say, let them go. I think it's really difficult to let somebody go. Extremely difficult to let somebody go, and you don't want to. You want to find every excuse to keep them on board, especially now. And I think that's why this conversation is so interesting, is because I think for any shop to succeed in the future, it's not going to even be the shops that have the best locations. It's not going to be the shops that have even the best marketing. It's the shops that can retain and find and retain the best talent that are going to succeed now in this current job market and in the future. So all of a sudden, the pool of applicants, if it was short before, it's going to get even smaller now. And we just went through this pandemic where addiction kind of exploded, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so technicians that maybe were working at a corporate store got laid off, got to sit at home for 18 months, maybe got hooked on something. Maybe they got popped and they ended up going to jail. Now they're out of jail. They're trying to get clean. There might be talent there. What do you do with those people? You need them. They're talented, but they're also former addicts. They're trying to get clean.
And that happens, man. I mean, I got a guy right now. He's a great employee, man, but he's an alcoholic, and that's fine if he wants to live his life outside of work. That's fine. But when it starts to come into work, that's when there's an issue. But man, he's a hell of an employee. That's
and that's where it gets tough, right? It is that you build an emotional connection with somebody. They do a really good job for you. Really, you need them. But I think the attitude always goes first, right? When addiction, because somebody can truly be a functioning addict.
Oh yeah. All the time.
Right. You can be a fully functioning alcoholic. You can be a stoner that can come in and you wouldn't believe the number of people who smoke pot every day. Right. I mean, you just wouldn't believe it.
It's legal across the country now.
Exactly. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
But I guess my point is that when it crosses that border, when it goes from just being, hey, he's a recreational user, to now he's screaming at other staff members, to now he's showing up an hour late, and he's talking about he needs more and more money every single day. It's one thing right after another. Man, you've got to know the warning signs. You've got to know when to say, hey, what's going on? We need to handle this. You've absolutely got to know what that looks like before you get yourself in that situation, because you will get into a situation. I mean, you could even have somebody disgruntled, and that is definitely not something you want in your shop.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ASOG podcast. If you'd like to catch these episodes early, you can do so by becoming a patron. Just go to asog.site and click on the Become a Patron Now button. Becoming a patron helps support the show, gets you several perks, and is tax deductible. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and on YouTube so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, shoot me an email. My email address is david@asog.site. That's DAVID @ASOG.SITE. Until next time.